The brutal death of Sir David Amess is a moment where everyone's got to think, how do we continue to have elected representatives who can interact directly with their constituents and to do so safely? This is the third knife attack on a Member of Parliament or his or her staff that has taken place in the last 20 years, and it's got to stop. It simply can't go on. Now, some have reacted to this. Tobias Ellwood has said, for the moment, MPs should only meet constituents via Zoom until there is a full review into where to go for the future. Some have suggested that perhaps a police officer could be stationed outside a surgery. Well, I think I've got a much better idea than both of those suggestions. I lived this for years, and I do accept that my profile was much higher than that of the average MP. And certainly David Amess had his opinions, but is not somebody you would have thought to be wildly contentious. My views were considered to be very contentious, and I had the whole of mainstream media against me. I think in my case, that was what provoked much of the hatred. And of course, I had endless death threats, and I was attacked. Some of those were filmed, many of them weren't. Time and again, I had drinks thrown over me, that sort of thing. And in the end, I had to have a lot of security with me. But the fact that I had security didn't stop me going on street walkabouts, didn't stop me visiting pubs, shops, didn't stop me holding events in town halls all over this country. And even with security, still people can run and get through and attack you in some way. But what I'm absolutely certain of is that if David Amess had a trained security officer, there is no way he would have been stabbed 17 times. It just wouldn't have happened. Maybe once is possible. But in this country, there are thousands of people who've served in Iraq, who've served in Afghanistan. They are used to being on the lookout for terrorism. They are used to dealing with civilians in difficult situations. Many of them haven't actually adapted back into society all that well. And I genuinely believe the only way through this is that every Member of Parliament must have a security officer with them when they're going about public duties, especially those that have been pre-advertised. You could argue just walking down the street on a Saturday morning the risk of that is quite low. But where anything has been pre-advertised, that is when public figures are at their most vulnerable. And I really think to use the cohort of military veterans we've got in this country, after all, there are only 651 MPs. We're not talking about employing a vast number of people. And I think that members of Parliament would know that when it came to a surgery or whatever else, there'd be some degree of protection there. I also want to say this, vetting. Surely if people book to come to an MP surgery, there ought to be a check on whether the person coming even lives in the constituency, and there ought to be a way very quickly for those names just to be passed over to the local police to check whether anyone on that list is potentially a problem. They're my two suggestions for making MP surgeries safer, better, and so that MPs will not be afraid to go out and mix with the electorate. And that applies to campaigning as well, because at a general election, people are out, they're doing things, there are hustings with other parties. Every MP on a public duty must have a trained security officer with them, and that's my view for today.